I'm standing along Sheridan Road here near Campo, California, on the site that was once known as Camp Lockett, which was a U.S. Army base that existed here during World War II. Now, Camp Lockett was established in 1941 here right near the border of Mexico, and there were a lot of fears that existed at that time, one of them being that an invasion might occur from Mexico into the United States, which is one of the reasons why it was placed right here, so near the border. Now, mostly cavalry units were stationed here, but there was also the Buffalo Soldiers, the African-American soldiers that were stationed here at Camp Lockett. And from 1941 through World War II, Camp Lockett existed. And by the mid-1940s, getting into 1944, it actually became the site for prisoners of war. Now, I believe there were around 400 Italian and 100 German POWs that were kept here at Camp Lockett. And today we're going to go see a site associated with those POWs. So as mentioned, I'm just off Sheridan Road, and after you walk through that white gate, I just parked at the coffee shop across the street, there's this small little hill that you need to climb up, and what we're looking for is a site known as the Chapel in the Rocks that Catholic Italian POWs had created here when they were prisoners of war at Camp Lockett. So this rather large rock formation, and it looks like I can see it right up there. And it's kind of odd. It feels very desolate, but then when you look over here, there's actually just a neighborhood. Looks fairly new, fairly newly built neighborhood right here next to this Chapel in the Rocks. And I hope that the residents that live there know about this very important site that for some of them is quite literally in their backyard. Today you can see there are some remnants of an old stone wall built here. And the shrine itself that was built by Italian POWs here at Camp Lockett is right here in the rock face. Unfortunately today it looks like the glass that's covering a statue of the Blessed Mother has been cracked and heavily damaged, which is unfortunate to see. There is a small plaque here on the front, dated 1944, with something in Italian. May need to translate that later. And this is a really interesting site that I had no idea existed. When you think about the horrors of war, particularly World War II, of course there were men and women on both sides that became prisoners of war. And when the United States took POWs during the war, whether they be Italian, German, Japanese, there were different POW camps set up. And this one here at Camp Lockett I find very fascinating. I'm sure the Germans and Italians who came from their native land were brought all the way out here to the deserts of California right by Mexico, were shocked, perhaps fascinated by the landscape. And to be fair, there are some portions of Southern California that look a lot like Italy in some ways, so I don't know, maybe it didn't feel as strange as I think it might have. But either way, as a prisoner of war, that is not a great situation to be in, so a lot of people in that situation rely on their faith. And in this case, the Italian POWs certainly relied on their faith and established this shrine up here in the rocks, known again as the Chapel in the Rocks. And to be standing here on this site, which was once home to around 500 prisoners of war, and to just picture these Italian men, these young Italian soldiers, these POWs, here on this site, maybe on their knees praying, is just, I don't know, it's just a very sobering thought. course, none of this would have been here. But back in the 40s, Camp Lockett was over 7,000 acres, had hundreds of buildings, as mentioned, an army garrison here, and later in the war, by 1944, those prisoners of war. And today, it's still pretty desolate out here, just over a mile from the border wall. Of course, a lot has changed, like I said, with this neighborhood down here. It's a little odd. But yeah, there you go. That is the chapel in the rocks. I'm just sitting up here by the chapel in the rocks, taking in the views, and really reflecting on World War II and what that meant for so many different people in so many different ways. And when you think about these young men, these young soldiers, sure, they were the enemy, but they became prisoners of war, and they spent at least some time here in this POW camp. And to just see a physical remnant of that reliance on faith to get through those hard times is pretty amazing. But it is cool to see this site, and in a way just kind of picture those men up here on these rocks, probably on their knees praying in Italian and just thinking about all their loved ones back home and just hoping they were going to get home alive, just as the American GIs were in POW camps around the world. It's truly amazing. But short little visit here. Very thankful I was able to stop by, and hopefully you all appreciated getting to see this really fascinating site with me. But that's going to be it for this one. Now it's on to the next journey.